Could I have this dance for the rest of my life? Hey y'all, here I am again. We're continuing our study of the Pretérito. We've talked about the regular preterite. We've talked about the pretty much regular preterite with some spelling changes in the yo form. Now I want to introduce you to just some down and dirty, completely irregular verbs. I mean, they're just irregular. Irregular. They're so irregular, some of them need a vowel movement. Alright, so in some previous activities or some videos, I had written up on the board some verbs and I had put them in the preterite and I had just told you what they meant. And some of them that I used were these very ones I'm going to have up here on the board. Hope you can see that. I know that's a little high up on the board, but hopefully you can be able to see it. We've got the verb dar, to give. The verb hacer, what does that mean? That's right, to do or to make. And then we've got ir, to what? To go. And then we've got the verb ser. What does that mean? Right, to be. Okay, so we've got these four verbs, and folks, these are going to be very, very irregular. So I know that in this day of quick learning and the desire to learn everything quickly, some of you may think, oh, how can I learn this more quickly? Well, you might just have to sit down and write these out over and over and over. Don't cry. Sometimes you have to do these things. All right, so let's take a look here at this first verb that we've got, dar, to give, okay? So it's an AR verb, but its endings just get crazy, and some of you are saying, well, why is that? Well, what happened a lot of times in Spanish over the hundreds of years that it's existed, remember it came from Latin, and when there were certain verbs that were perhaps similar to other verbs in their forms, sometimes they would just kind of blend together in what's called analogy, or what just kind of makes those verbs seem similar. So for that reason you have an AR verb that might end in ER or IR verb endings. Again, we just got to accept it. We got to accept it. So let's take this verb dar, to give, okay? And we've got di, diste, dio, dimos, and dieron. And guys, these verbs are found in chapter 8 of your books. I'm turning around to look, and they are found in your books, or at least in the new edition, on page 253 in chapter 8. So you can take a look at that if you don't have time to copy down the forms right here. Okay? So, di, diste, dio, dimos, dieron. Again, yeah, they're AR verbs, but they've got these funky IR, ER verb endings. That's just how it is. We've just got to accept it, okay? So, for example, if I wanted to say something, I could say, yo le di el dinero a Susana. I gave the money to Susanna, okay? Or, ella me dio el regalo. She gave me the gift. All right, so you can see this verb to give is very useful with those indirect and direct objects, because normally when you say to give, normally you're waiting to think, okay, what did I give? To whom did I give it? So it's used a lot with the verb to give. All right, let's look quickly at the verb hacer, to do or to make. To do or to make. Okay, now this is one of those verbs, very, very common. It's used a lot. So these forms, you will hear them or see them very frequently in Spanish, because this is one of those verbs we probably use a whole lot in a day when we're speaking Spanish. So the forms for these are hice, hiciste, hizo, hicimos, and hicieron. Alright? So again, it ends in an AR, but you've got a completely new root that this word is taking right here. You see the HIC and then the HIZ down here in the él, ella, usted form. So we've got hice, hiciste, hizo, hicimos, hicieron. So these forms are completely irregular because even though maybe some of them kind of look like what an ER verb might look like in the pretérito, they're just kind of mixed with AR verbs and ER verbs, so there's really no rhyme or reason to them. They're just irregular, so you have to do whatever you need to do to memorize and to study these words. Again, I think just writing things out over and over, yes, it's tedious, but let me tell you, there's just something about the mental and then this physical connection. It works. So you may have to write things out more than once, but hey, if it works, it works. Alright, so hice, hiciste, hizo, hicimos, hicieron. Okay, I could say, for example, mi tía me hizo un pastel. My aunt made me a cake. Okay, also, for example, in Spanish, when we say to exercise, we use the expression hacer ejercicio. So I can say that ayer yo no hice ejercicio. Yesterday, I didn't exercise. Literally, hacer ejercicio means to do exercise. So that's what that would mean. Okay? So we've got hice, hiciste, hizo, hicimos, hicieron. Let's say I wanted to know what you did last night. I could say, ¿Qué hiciste anoche? ¿Qué hiciste anoche? What did you do last night? What did you do last night? Yo no hice nada especial para el 4 de julio. I didn't do anything special for the 4th of July. Yo no hice nada especial para el 4 de julio. ¿Y tú? ¿Tú hiciste algo especial para el 4 de julio? Yo no. Yo no hice nada especial. All right. So we've got hacer. And then finally, we've got 2 verbs. And this one is one of those that kind of makes us just want to scratch our heads and go, why is this way? I'm going to erase this so I can maybe put it a little closer over here so you can see it a little better. It's the verb ir and then the other verb ser. Okay? Now, what does ir mean? That's right, to go. And what does the verb ser mean? What? No, it doesn't mean that. It means to be. But it means to be in terms of something more permanent. As in, for example, like I am American, or you are the president of the club, or whatever. So it does not mean like to be in a location. Remember, that's with the verb estar, and that's different. Okay, so the neat thing about ir and ser is that they both share the very same forms in the past tense. And those forms are fui, fuiste, fue, fuimos, and fueron. I know that's a mouthful to say. All right? So, fui, yo fui, tú fuiste, él fue, nosotros fuimos, ellos fueron. That's right. Mouthful, but you can do it. And I know what you're thinking. Mr. Lee, how do I know which one is which? Well, what's that special word? Context. Contexto. Your context in your sentence will let people know if you're saying I was or I went. I was or I went. For example, watch this. Yo fui a Cuba. Yo fui a Cuba. All right? Well, because I'm talking about Cuba, and we know Cuba's a country, I'm not saying I was Cuba. I'm saying what? I went to Cuba. So in this case, fui would come from which verb? Ir. You got it. It would come from ir. But if I would say, yo fui el presidente del club. Wow, having to write all the way on this board. Yo fui el presidente del club. Well, the fact that I'm talking about being a president of a club, you can understand that I didn't say I went president of the club. I what? I was president of the club. Okay? So again, guys, these are some verbs that are completely irregular. You have to learn them however you can. Remember, context will be your key, especially with ir and with the verb ser. Okay? So study up. See you next video. Gracias.